Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of Day 4 with the man Frank Scalish. Day 4, number 149.
Holy
February
moly.
1st.
We're coming on a 150, dude.
Yeah, I know. That means the next one that we do is 150. So we're recording the show. I'm currently at Lake Okeechobee. It is day 1 of the Bass Nation Opens EQ, so we're kicking off in Florida. So hopefully I'm on a satchel of bass already, since it's an hour later there. So it's like 9:30, 10 o'clock. So by now, if you're listening to this as soon as it drops, I should be somewhere around a clump of reeds, boat flipping 6s and 7s, because that's how it always works, right, Frank?
That's exactly how that's exactly how it works. It always goes exactly how you think it's gonna go.
Have you ever had a tournament day in your life that you were jacked up for the Derby? You had in your mind, because when you've had good practices, when you have expectations, you're like, this is how I picture it going in my head. You got a starting spot, you kind of have maybe somewhere you want to mill around. Have you ever in your life had a day where at 2 p.m. you go, holy cow, this thing has gone exactly as planned?
Like for real, exactly as planned?
Yeah, for real, exactly as planned.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So you have had those days?
Yeah, well, yeah, I've had. I mean, there were glitches thrown in the mix.
Okay, no, I'm talking about a glitch-free. Just you get off the water at the end of the day, and you're like, I think I just fished the perfect day.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Red River. My first tournament ever on the Red River went exactly how it was supposed to go every single day.
Really?
Yeah, it was every single day, dude. The only thing that was different on each day, believe it or not, the bite got on an hour later every day, which was so bizarre because normally you're on fish, you go to the fish, you catch the fish. I literally, the first morning I got to my place, I just immediately started whacking fish.
And planned on it, like you knew I got a spot that I plan on rolling up and whacking fish.
100%. Every bush had one in it. It was like,
and you're landing them. You get a bite, come in the boat, perfect execute. Really?
Everyone. So then the next day I go and I fish for about an hour and don't have a single bite in the boat, and I'm almost panicking that I gotta leave, and then all of a sudden I start catching them, and caught and landed every one of them, called the whole deal.
Same weight that you expected, same size, everything.
And then the last day I go there, conditions changed, water came down a little, things got a little funky on me, and I didn't have a fish for 2 hours, and I said, we got to go because we're way the hell away from weigh-in. We got to go. I got other stuff. And I said, well, before we go, I'm going to redo this one section of this backwater area. And I go and bang, 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 bang. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Because I was like literally a millisecond from completely bailing on the place. And,
but that first day that was like a dream tournament day.
It was. I knew the first tree that I was going to flip in, I knew there was a bass in there, and I flipped in there and caught it. And I went to the next one, flipped in there and caught it. And it was just like doink, 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 like just like perfect.
I love hearing those stories. But
yeah,
how many tournament days have you fished in your life? Hundreds and hundreds of tournament days. And you could think of one that went 100% to script.
Yeah, because here's the weird thing. Like I've had tournament days that went like Buffalo. When I won Buffalo, that was exactly like I thought it was going to be, only I didn't know I was going to be in 10 to 12 foot waves. Yeah. And it made it ridiculously difficult.
Yeah, so that added stress to it, was a completely different element that in your mind you weren't picturing heading into that tournament.
Correct. I mean, it was, that's something that I was, truthfully not expecting. And then didn't want anything to do with it, but I was already committed, so I had no choice. But yeah, it's very, there's always changes. Legitimately, there's always changes, especially in multiple day tournaments. What you do the first day is usually not exactly what you're doing on the third day, although it does happen.
Do you think the average angler going out, whether they're going out fun fishing or whether they are going out for a tournament, doesn't realize how many adjustments even the top anglers, like you're watching, if you're watching the Bassmasters on FS1 and you're watching these guys whack them, the average guy doesn't realize that 99% of the time you're going to have to call some audibles, you're going to have to change something up to get the bite going, and then you get frustrated in the first couple hours because you drove to the lake planning on doing something, it's not working exactly like you thought or had planned or like it was the day before, and then they get thrown into a tailspin instead of sitting down and making small adjustments.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, probably the biggest comeback I ever did in an event. It was a Bassmaster event. It was on Lake Erie, of all places. And what I had going in practice was not even anything remotely close as to how I had to catch them in the tournament. And I went to the first day. I was catching them insanely shallow on the main mainland. And I went to those fish and they were literally gone. I weighed in the first, when I say gone, Matt, here's what I weighed in the first day of that event: 10.5 pounds. I weighed in 10.5 pounds.
If you had Bama, then Bama probably should have been smart to like hide under a table or something when you got home.
Yeah, exactly. So
cat gets punted for days like that on Erie.
Right, but that was day one. And so I said, I got to go and do something that completely different. So I just, I told my non-boater, we're not stopping the boat till I find fish. And so I just went to where all those fish were and I started zigzagging back and forth, working my way deeper and deeper and deeper. And then I found a couple of small glacier deposits and saw some fish on them. Dropped down on the first one and it was, over 4 pounds. Anyway, the long and short of it is I wound up catching them the second day, enough to make the cut on the third day. And then I wound up taking fourth in that event. And after the first day, I was in 86th place and came back to finish fourth. That was the biggest comeback. Dude, that was the biggest comeback I ever made in my life. And to be truthful with you, I had to come in 2 hours early because I had electrical issues and my live wells and my locators and all that stopped working. I had to come in early. So I came in 2 hours early and fished in the bay until the weigh-in. But it was ludicrous. And I never shut my motor off because if I did, the live wells wouldn't run. It was ludicrous because I believe wholeheartedly I could have won the event because I could have called 2 more fish and I probably could have won the event. But my buddy Paul Horoski won it fair and square. And but that was something that, like, after the first day I was really gut hurt because I'm like, there is no flipping way on this lake that you're going to make up that kind of deficit.
Yeah, that's the biggest comeback I've ever heard of in a Great Lakes smallmouth tournament in my life.
Right, because you know how it goes, dude. Everybody.
Yeah, you're 5 pounds back, and you might as well be 15 pounds back usually.
Right, 100%, because everybody's whacking on them. But for whatever happened, the weather events that occurred in that particular tournament, guys were struggling to catch them on the last 2 days. Where I figured it out, and I was really catching them on the last 2 days. So it was, but it never. The coolest thing about our sport, and you know what, Frankie and I had this conversation the other day. In fact, I was talking about adjustment, believe it or not. And I told him, he goes, Dad, are you going to pop in a couple of these things? I go, well, I said, I'm rusty, dude. I said, my adjustment time isn't what it used to be. because I'm not on the water every single day. And so it takes me a minute longer to process. When I was fishing all the time, I just never had to think about it. I said, oh, there, I better do this, or oh, I better do that. And now I have to analyze what I'm doing again. I gotta think about it, analyze it, and then go do it, because the recall isn't as rapid because of lack of
it's not instinctual. It's not instinctual where you're making decisions without even thinking about it. It's kind of mechanical where you have to think about it to get back in the swing of things before the decisions kind of can become natural.
Exactly. It's not like you get in your car, you don't have to consciously think, I better turn my turn signal on. You just hit it. You don't even think you're doing it anymore.
But if you go to Aruba for a couple weeks and you don't have to drive and you're in a resort backing out, you know what I mean? Like, you ever got back and you're like, whoa, it's been a couple weeks since I've driven here.
Yeah, I mean, it's no
kind
different.
of the same thing,
right? It's no different. There's going to be a point in time. Well, it's actually right now where my boat's going to be parked for a month or two, and then when I get back in the boat, backing it up again, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, that's right. That's how you do it. I'm saying. Yeah. So I mean, that's just how it goes.
That's an interesting topic, because I don't think a lot of, like I said, you have in your vision where you're going to catch them, how it's going to go down, what it's going to be like. And, you can maybe remember one day, and, I fished almost 40 opens at this point.
Yeah.
So I'm around 85, 84 days, 83 days, I think 83 days, of opens. And I can remember one day where it went exactly as planned on day one. I think I was 7th or 8th after day one of one of your favorite lakes, Lake Norman. But I went into that tournament and I was like, I think I can catch 13 pounds tomorrow. I've got a couple docks that have big ones on it. And if I can cull up and get 3 2-pounders and catch a big one off of these 2 docks, that should give me around 13, which is really good. I caught 20, 25 fish, never lost a single one. Went to the dock that I plan on catching a big one on. First cast, 3.5-pounder.
Perfect.
Had saved the second dock because it was over by takeoff and had like 11.5, like 10.5, 11 pounds with 4 2s and a 3.5, 3 3/4. Roll up, make one cast, catch another 3.5 as time expires, cull it out, roll in and go. I had 2 docks that I thought had big fish on it, caught a big one off each dock, culled up to all my weight, caught him the exact in every rotation where I thought I would, landed fish I wasn't supposed to, never got stressed out, caught a limit in the first 30 minutes, rolled in and was like, how did everyone not have 12.5, 13 pounds that day, and was in the top 10? And I mean, I was like, it was the smoothest, carefree, easiest day I have ever had on the water. And it's one day.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? And you know how it is too. When you're having those days,
it's
you think everybody's waylaying them.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? You think everyone is catching them. It's like, and you're just going, gosh, I think I might have needed about 4 more extra pounds here.
Yeah.
And then you come in and you're like, holy smokes, you know, it's pretty cool.
I mean, now I've had other days that have been exceptionally good and went as planned, but I'll have something unexpected happen during that day. Like, where did that 5-pounder come from? Hadn't seen a fish like that. Or you'll come in like at Hartwell when I had 16.5 the first day, like that went as planned, but I dumped one over 5 a spot.
Right. Oh,
so
yeah.
Like that didn't go as planned. Like if that, and it was where I thought I'd catch a big one, but I thought I could have 18 that day, and that big spot would have given me 18. So that, I mean, that was where you had the ability to spin out. But yeah, perfect days are very rare.
They are. Even, even fun fishing, even fun fishing, you're still making the adjustments. You're not as intense, fun fishing, but you're still making the adjustments so you can catch them. Last year, or actually, I want to say the year before last, we were actually on an A-rig bite from hell. I mean, it was just stupid. and catching fish. Like it was ridiculous how many bass we caught a day in the middle, of winter.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so predictable, and it lasted. And then I remember going back, and I caught one bass on an A rig, and I didn't have live scope or forward facing sonar then. So I would 2D it. I would find where they're suspending, back off, and then I would have my gauge. And so what was happening was they like nothing. And so I saw the fish were 11, 12 feet deep, and they wanted nothing to do with that A rig, like nothing to do with it. So I picked up my deeper suspending jerk baits. I backed way off the fish. I picked up actually it was the Perfect 10 Rogue is what I was throwing. I threw smaller deep diving jerk baits, and the fish weren't reacting to it. I went to the big P10, and it was like a light switch went on and turned what was turning into a real crappy day, turned it into one of the best days that I've had in a long time. And here it was that adjustment from saying, okay, they're not running the A rig down.
Mm-hmm.
They're not eating the smaller stuff. And then the bell goes off in my head. All the shad I'm seeing are 6 to 9 inch shad. I better get a big bait down to them that I can hang in front of their face. And so the P10 was the bait, dude. It was the right size. It had that slow, lazy. You know how them shad get real lazy in the winter when they swim. They're real lazy. The Perfect 10 has that slow, lazy action to it. And I wound up going to 8-pound test line on it because I wanted it to move more when I would shake the rod tip. I wanted the bait to pivot on its axis more, and I can get an extra foot or so out of it, depth wise. And there was no reason not to throw it on 8 because the fish were literally over nothing. So there was
Not
nothing.
like they could run into something.
Yeah, there's nothing that can get in the way of the fight back to the boat. And so that turned out to be an adjustment that turned out to be that, and that pattern wound up lasting me until I couldn't launch a boat anymore, till it froze solid. And I wound up taking that to other lakes because other lakes had similar characteristics, and I wound up catching them on every lake I went doing that. That year, and it was unbelievable, and it was all predicated on shad and all predicated on the size of the shad.
You mentioned the Perfect 10 Rogue. Now, if my memory serves me correct, that was launched just prior to the 2017, 16 or 17 Classic on Grand Lake. Didn't they do a launch with that at Jason Christie and all that back in, that's either 17, 18, whichever one the second one was on Grand. We're going back to Grand here.
Yeah,
a month and a half for it. But that I was kind of, if I remember correctly, the first time that I had seen the Perfect 10, which was kind of a remake. Not a remake, it's a different bait. Can we go into the difference between a regular Rogue and a Perfect 10? Because I know we've done a lot of jerkbait shows, we've done Rogue shows, and we've done Perfect 10 shows, but I don't think we've ever really gone into, at least for me, like I've got 3 jerkbait boxes. I've got a Rogue box exclusively, but I've got like 3 Perfect 10 sprinkled in, and I'm not sure when to reach for that as to when to reach for like an original Rogue.
Okay, so here you've got the original suspending rattling Rogue, which is, I think it's 4 inches maybe. I'm not 100% sure. I should have brought all my Rogues up here. All I grabbed was a handful of P10.
Yeah, no, that's fine. This Smithwick suspending rattling Rogue is
the original
4.5 inches.
Okay, so it's 4.5. Then you've got the original Pro Rogue, which is the same body size as the Perfect 10. It's the same length as the Perfect. In fact, it's the same body. Okay. So here's what I'm going to tell you why the Perfect was born.
Okay.
It was born because we needed a bait that had that same lazy, slow action of the suspending Rattling Rogue and the original Pro Rogue, but that would dive deeper. The reason they call it the Perfect 10 is because it gets down to 10 feet.
Ah.
And you could fudge that. You can make it shallower by beefing up your line size, or make it run a little deeper by going thinner line size. So that was why the Perfect 10 was born. And it was born because the bass guys needed a bait that would suspend deeper, stay horizontal in the water column, because I don't like them this way and I don't like them this way. I like them this way because I do a lot of, in my technique, I do a lot of, I shake the rod tip. And so when you shake it, what the bait does is it does this on its axis. It rotates this way.
Another word, instead of feathering it, you're feathering it when you get it to depth.
Right. When I get it down to the proper depth. So the first thing I'll do I'll cast it out and I'll do a long sweep of the rod. Now I won't pull it hard like that. Like in the springtime, smallmouth fishing, it looks like I'm having a seizure on the front deck because I'm really aggressive with it. But in the wintertime, late fall through the whole winter, even where we live, ice out. Where you guys live, it would be super early spring. So I do a long sweep with the rod and I get it down to depth. And then once it's there, okay, once it gets to where I want it to be, I don't slap it. I don't go whack, whack, whack. I don't do that. What I do is I do a 1 to a 2 foot pull and I just do it real slow. And so the bait goes doom, 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 and then it stops. And then I'll shake the rod tip. I shake it,
which makes the bait,
and the bait quivers, like this, not like this, but like this. Okay. And then I leave it sit there. And while it's sitting there, it's just going to go, you know what I mean? Because there's still movement. And then I'll pull it another, foot to 2 feet, just nice and slow, because all I want this thing to do is just go, whoom, 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 and then stop again. And then I'll shake it. It'll do that. So anyway, so that's how I fish the crazy thing.
But, are you letting the cat out of the bag with your demonstrations? Because those look like Perfect 10s in the new FX colors.
They are. Oh, they are. But you know what? Okay. So I forgot. We're the birth.
You've gotten in trouble before for showing colors that are not supposed to be exposed. You've gotten some calls on that in the past. So I wanted to make sure, since this is a recording show, that we don't have to stop the show and start over.
No, we're good. So okay. So back to the history behind the Perfect 10. So they called me up and they said, we need colors for this new jerk bait, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay, no problem. And this is going back years ago. And so I'm like, yeah, no problem. So I painted some realistic patterns, like this pattern called lace minnow, which it's actually modeled after a dace, D-A-C-E. They changed the name, right? They changed the name on it to lace minnow, which is that bait's no longer, that color is no longer available. But anyhow, so here's what happened. I made bass colors. Okay. So I did a color for smallmouth and I called it Lemon Lime Crush, which is still available today. But Lemon Lime Crush, the walleye anglers got on it. And it became an overnight, that's Lemon Lime Crush with the orange belly. And then I had Lemon Lime Crush with the white pearl belly, the quintessential gut bag. Anyway, so here's what happens. The walleye guys get on this bait, trolling it on the Great Lakes, and it goes ballistic instantly overnight. And so they're like, we need walleye colors. So I come up with all these walleye colors. And that's Crackle Clown. That's a fabulous smallmouth color, Crackle Clown. Nope. Yep. So anyway, so it becomes this walleye sensation overnight. Okay. And the problem was it never went to the bass community. It just never registered in the bass community. So fast forward to today, I called that Fruit Loops, but I don't think we could have used the name. But anyway, so you fast forward to today, and I did those FX colors for the suspending Rattling Rogue, which were specifically designed for bass, and you guys know about them because we covered them already. So it was specifically designed for bass. Well, I'm like, we got to put them in the perfect 10. We have to put those colors in the perfect 10 because that's one of my go-to jerk baits. So they said, okay, we'll put it in the perfect 10. And lo and behold, they're out. All the FX colors that you guys saw in
the 4FX. Just, do you have all 4 of them there? Just run through them real quick. Just abbreviated version, because then I want to go back to another color that I've never seen, but I feel like should be in the tackle box. Okay,
this is I call this one Violet Chartreuse. Actually, it was actually Violet Cream Chartreuse, but we shortened and named it Violet Chartreuse. It's got a pearled, creamy bone back, violet pearl on the sides, and then it's got a pearled chartreuse belly, but it's a real vibrant, subtle chartreuse. This is probably one of the best sellers in the suspending Rattling Rogue right now. And then its twin is just violet cream with the white pearl belly on it.
Yep.
Because sometimes they don't want chartreuse with the white pearl belly. And then I have foil green. You guys know these colors because we went over them. The foil green is unique, and the foil blue also.
It says on here they're oil blue.
Yeah, oil. I mean oil. Okay. Thanks. Oil blue and oil green. Now here's the unique thing about this. There's other baits that have heat stamps on them.
Yeah.
That's not a secret. But what I did was I layered a couple different pearl colors underneath it and then pearled over top of it with other pearls. And so what this bait does, what all the effects baits do, they're chameleon-like based on water clarity. So what this bait looks like in clear water, it looks entirely different in off-colored or dirty water. The oil green is probably the most because it looks supernatural out of the package.
Mm-hmm.
When it goes in clear water, it looks alive and natural. The minute the water becomes off color, this bait almost turns bright white. So it's really wild how the multiple layers of these pearls are reflecting the light different in different conditions. So that's how the FX series was born.
I like it. So any like your paint jobs are like any good human being, depth and layers.
That's right, depth and layers. So like this particular one here, this is actually blue violet, and it's a real shad imitator. But I used a pearl that changes color as the bait changes. It changes from violet to blue.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to see on here.
Now, are the guts of that perfect 10 similar to the guts of the Rattling Rogue? You can kind of see through that one. You can see the chambers inside. Is that the same? Because a perfect 10 looks and feels a little bit different than just a regular
Well,
Pro Rogue.
right. It feels different because
Yeah, it
don't
seems
forget it's diving deeper, so you've got more drag on the bill, so it feels different. And like
okay.
here with the suspending Rattling Rogue and the original Pro Rogue, the bills flex a little bit.
They're supposed
Okay,
to.
right? They're supposed to. That's what gives it that. You know, it's not a
Mhm.
action. It's real. You know, it does all kinds of things. So the thing that's different about the P10 is the only thing different about it is it dives deeper.
Okay.
It was really hard to make them all have that same what they
Without
do.
completely changing the action that makes it such a good cold water bait.
Correct. That was this right here was the design genius, I'll
Mhm.
say, to figure out how this bill had to be shaped to make the bait not change its action
I
and give it
gotcha.
the depth you need. So it's really kind of a cool thing.
Why
Um,
have we never seen that color before? That seems like it would be a killer.
because these the walleye guys have literally taken this bait out of the hands of any bass fisherman that want
So
them.
it's like hard to find that one.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm on the site, but like, there's some ones in here that I would not have. That's the one there, but like, there's a couple in here that I would have zero problem throwing for
Oh
bass.
yeah.
In fact, they would probably work pretty damn well because they haven't seen it, and it's the exact same bait, just with the walleye color. It has
Correct.
it's. I mean, it's the exact. That bait
Correct.
is the exact same as that one.
Correct. And so so going back to that, so here's a trick with the original Pro Rogues. Okay, I used to do a lot of smallmouth fishing on Lake Erie with that Pro Rogue, um, and I would pull it so hard that bill would flex, and that Rogue would never do the same thing twice. That was the whole key to that, was that flex in the bill. So when I would be up there going wham, wham, wham. That bill's flexing, the bait's doing all different stuff, and the smallmouth can't stand that. But you got to remember, in the wintertime, that's not how they want it. In the wintertime, they just want that slow laziness that happens with these baits. And so that's really the main difference. Is the suspending Rattling Rogue, the original one, is a little bit of a shallower diver. The Pro Rogue gets a tiny bit deeper, not much really, but it offers you the large body style. And then, of course, the Perfect 10 gives you the big body style, but it gives you the depth. And so that's really how this bait was born. So now with these new FX colors, what we're hoping for is that the bass community latches onto this thing like the walleye guys did, because originally it was literally designed for bass, but once the walleye guys got a hold of it, there was nothing we could do
What do
about
they
it.
do? Troll those things?
Yeah. So here's a neat thing. Okay. So the suspending the P10 suspends. It's a true suspending bait. And so what the walleye guys do in the cold months, especially when they troll, they'll do slow, lazy S turns with their boat. So they're trolling like a snake. Okay.
Okay.
Well, when they make the turn, the inside baits stall. They pause. Well, this bait stays at the same depth. It doesn't float back up. It stays where it is. Where the outside baits speed up as the boat turns, boom, the outside baits pick up speed, right?
Mhm.
What they found is that on the inside turns, when the bait stalls, because it suspends at the right level of where the fish are, the walleyes crush it, especially in the cold months. So it took off like gangbusters. I mean, it's just and they got like all these unique trolling methods where they can pause these baits when they're trolling them, and by the way they turn the boat and stuff, and it's just they made a science out of trolling.
Yeah. All right, I got a question about this one that I don't think you've talked about it. We're talking about the suspending Super Rogue, which is a big bodied bait.
It's the same size as the P10.
Okay. That's this one. It's out of stock on LureNet right now, but it actually says in the description that it's a molded in lip that
Okay,
doesn't flex.
that's the Super Rogue.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the Pro Rogue.
I know that, but then what's the different? When do you use
That
the
bait,
Super Rogue?
okay, so that bait will have a consistent action all the time. Its
Okay,
vibration pattern will be the same all the time. So that bait there, you can fish it fast and do, and it's going to give you a tighter, a tighter action like most jerk baits today have. Um, the bill barely flexes. The bait runs exactly tight in the same way all the time. Where when you look at the suspending rattling Rogue, the original Pro Rogue, and the Perfect 10, um, that bill design that gives you the laziness, the inconsistency in the action, um, that really, in my estimation, it really triggers bites. It's just the P10's one of my go-to
yeah.
baits. Um,
But you see where I was saying, so I've got my, like I said, I've got my
yeah,
Rogue box, but I got P10s, I've got suspending Super Rogues, suspending rattling Rogues, Pro Rogues.
right,
I've got all those, and I'm sitting there going, okay, uh, when and why, and that's what kind of helps me differentiate. What you just went through really helps differentiate. So you're talking about you want depth and erratic,
right,
depth and erratic, and you base the erratic on water temperature and activity of the fish
and how right, and it's based on how aggressively
and how aggressive they are, and then you
you're fishing the bait too.
okay, and then
So
you
like
base the other lure on depth, on where the fish are sitting.
right, so you
Okay.
went to the Super Rogue with the molded in bill,
Yeah.
right? That bait there, when the water warms up in the spring and you got to fish fast and crazy, um, that's a good bet because it can handle it. You know what I mean? It's tighter, it's faster. Um, so as the water warms, that's when you would go, okay, I better get off the Pro Rogue or the P10 because now I need a bait that I can fish like a maniac. And you know what I mean? So that's where all that stuff came into play.
Okay. That helps a lot. I
Yeah.
was genuinely curious about that.
Well, the rogue is misunderstood in today's anglers. The younger angler,
100%.
especially.
It's considered the Rogue is put in my mind, especially with the younger anglers, put in the same category as a wiggle wart or a speed trap or something that everybody has to have because all the guys that are good that they know that are older have a bunch of them, but no one's exactly sure what to do with it now. In the younger generation,
Right, well, yeah, I mean, here, look at the advent of jerk baits. Look at the
Mhm.
transformation they've taken. There's great jerk baits on the market today. That's no lie. I mean, there's some phenomenal jerk baits on the market, but each jerk bait has specific uses. It's just like, remember when we did the crankbait show and I explained, divers, hard divers,
Yep.
swimmers. Jerk baits are exactly the same way. Only it's more based on action and suspending characteristic. And so that's what you have with the rogues. In all honesty, the rogues are one of the first suspending jerk baits designed for cold water bass, and this has been a millennium ago.
Yep.
I mean, this bait's been around forever. Uh,
Yeah.
so I mean, it's really a cool thing. I have a buddy of mine um, that fishes the P10. The day they came out with them, and he fishes Champlain, Oneida. He lives up that way, and he swears that's the only one you need up there forever. And I won't disagree with them and say it's how effective it is, but I'm of the mindset that each lure is made for a reason. And so I like to know the reason. So I can't say if I had to pick one jerkbait, this is what it would be, or if I had to pick one crankbait, that's what it would be, because situations, need different baits.
Which is why they offer so many different models right there. But it is true. I mean, still in the Ozarks, there is, and it's in the next month and a half, specifically when the water's cold. You might have a little bit of a shad kill. You still have some good clarity in the water. A lot of the veteran anglers will say, "Oh, it's a rogue day."
Oh yeah, dude.
And these are guys who throw other jerk baits too. There's other,
Right,
darters that all sorts of different brands. But when it's rogue season and when they're on a rogue,
you better
it
be
will
having
100% outfish any other jerkbait on the market. And I think it's because of that first segment when we started talking about the jerkbaits, where you really went into the lazy and how you fish it, and the little it does things that it's hard to do on a darter, one that's designed to dart, one that's designed to be erratic, one that's designed to bomb.
Right, exactly. And then you got to realize too that some jerkbaits today are designed to have that tight, really tight wiggle and roll to it. And so it's super tight going through the water. So it doesn't have that
lazy roll.
Right, exactly. I mean the thing that I heard a lot growing up was exactly that. Oh, it's got the rogue roll to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what but really what it is, it's just a wide, lazy action to it, which is really cool.
Now, if you go back into the archives, we have done shows on tuning.
Oh yeah.
Jerkbaits. I don't know which number it is. You can Google it on YouTube or look at the list to find tuning of the jerkbaits, because that is critical when you're in the water. You don't want the thing coming up. You want to be able to get maximum depth out of it. So go back and listen to that show.
Right, and I'll touch on it real briefly. Okay, so this has a nose line pull. Okay, now I throw all of my jerkbaits, has a split ring on the nose, and I use the Norman speed clip on the split ring. It's free. It moves real free. There's no tension to it. But because it's a nose line pull, when you put your pliers, and I didn't bring my pliers up, so I'm going to use scissors to demonstrate. When you do that, you want your pliers to be completely It's hard to do with scissors because
watch your finger, Frank.
Yeah, like yours. So you want your pliers to be perfectly parallel to the bait.
So you're not torquing the eye and then you're screwing the bait up, not helping it.
Because you don't ever twist on any jerkbait that has a nose line tie.
Because they're sensitive, just like me.
Sensitive, right? So you don't ever want to run the risk of twisting it. You always want it to, when you move it left or right. So if the bait runs right, you move the line pull left. If the bait runs left, you move the line pull right. But when I say move it, you can't feel that thing moved. If you feel that moved, you just overtune the shit out of it, and it's just going to go whoop, right up to the surface. I mean, it's just a bump. Like on a perfect 10, to be legitimate, I could tune it with my thumb, and I do that on the water a lot. If I'm catching a lot of fish and it gets a little bit out of joint and starts to run just a little bit off to the side, I'll just pick it up and then I'll just tune it with my thumb like that, and it'll go right back to normal. They're super, super sensitive to tuning, which is a good thing because they're easy to tune. But they're as easy as they are to tune. It's as easy as they are to overtune them.
But that's the beauty and why the bait is effective, is because it is sensitive to that. If they were to make it to where it was like, hey, these all are perfect regardless of what, then you lose the magic roll and the finesse swim in that bait.
Yeah, I mean, here, look, and then here's the other mistake I see people do a lot, and I've got videos coming out on this tuning stuff. But here's a big mistake. People will put the lure in the water, whether it's a crankbait, a jerkbait, whatever. They just have 5 feet of line out. They drop it over the side of the boat and they pull it. Whoa, and they see which way the bait's tracking, and then they tune from there. That's an inaccurate tune, because you're not pulling the bait the way the bait's designed to be pulled. You don't have the right pressure on the line tie. Okay. Mm-hmm. So what I'll do is I'll cast out 15 feet and I'll point my rod tip straight at the bait, and I reel it in moderately. And my rod tip is literally this far from the water surface and is pointed directly at the bait. Then I can see which way it's tracking on a normal retrieve. Then I tune it. Because if you tune it with just a little bit of line out and you pull it, your angle of your line is like that. So you're forcing the water over the bill at an angle it's not supposed to be. And so you get a false tune that way. Like guys will say, I can't tune this bait. Oh, I can't tune this crankbait. I can't tune this jerkbait. Well, yeah, because you're not pulling it the way it's designed to be pulled. So you're getting a false tune out of it. Yes, you can tune it so with 5 feet of line out and ripping it across the side of the boat, it's tuned. But the minute you make the cast, it starts to drift on you. That's because you didn't tune it properly. And so here, a perfectly tuned crankbait, jerkbait runs truer to depth. Okay. It tracks the way it's supposed to track. And that's very important, because think about this. If you do your bait and you go, oh, it's just a little bit to the right, and then you bomb a cast out there and you're expecting this jerkbait to get down to 10 feet and you're working it back to the boat, it's never going to see 10 feet, because instead of it going to depth, it's going to the side. So it's pulling line to the side, but it's not getting you to the depth you need to get to. And that's why it's so critical. Any jerkbait you throw has to be perfectly tuned for it to work right, no matter whose jerkbait it is.
Can you tune your entire box of jerkbaits, or you just do them like in a pool, or can you go to the lake and say, hey, I'm dialing in my jerkbaits today, not planning on catching fish, I'm just working on getting it, making sure everything in the box that I pull out is running right? Or is that something you just do like one at a time as you pull one out and decide to fish with it, make that cast, put the rod tip down, reel it in, make a little adjustment, and you're good to go then? Or is your entire box, when you pull one out, regardless of what it is, do you know that it's tuned?
It's tuned. It's tuned after I put hooks on it.
Okay.
If I got one, if I got them with hooks on them, they're tuned because I've been fishing them. I don't put hooks on them in my box unless I fish them. And so then I know it's not a tuned bait, but you could totally pre-tune everything. I just don't like to store everything with hooks on them, because especially jerkbaits, then you go grab one and they all come out with it.
Yeah, that's my problem with my Rogue box. They're all packed in there so tight. God,
right.
It'll take me an hour to get. It takes an hour. But so the one thing I did do that does not work is I spent one winter where I probably spent 20 hours with lead strips and different hook sizes and different diameters of split rings, but I made them suspend in my sink. Well, then you get to the damn lake where it's not tap water in a confined little area. Doesn't work. They either floated or they sank, because something sure with density and all that stuff, and there wasn't it was a great idea, but you got to tune those suckers on a body of water, or not tune, but wait and tune them on where you're going to fish them. Right,
because they'll suspend or sink based on water temperature
and elevation.
And elevation. And when the bait gets deeper, there's more pressure on the bait also. So, I prefer my suspending jerkbaits to have a tiny, slow rise to them, because then I don't run into sinking problems. Mm-hmm. Like I'm not a fan of a jerkbait that sinks, and I know there's some on the market, and there's reasons for that. And if you're fishing for that application, then that's okay. But for the most part, I don't want my suspending jerkbait to sink. For one, I feel the action is kind of deadened on it. I like to really feel what the bait's doing. But you're 100% right. I don't add lead strips, dots, or lead wire on anything unless I'm on the water and I'm like, this bait is rising too fast for me. I better put some lead on the front hook or the middle hook.
All right, this bait's never talked about, Frank,
It's
and
never.
it gets down to 10 feet according to this.
Mm-hmm.
What's the deal with the deep suspending rattle and rogue? I think I've only got like one or two of these.
Yeah, that was a really good hidden secret for a long time in the bass community.
Oh, so it catches.
Yeah, oh, it catches them. Yeah. That on Gunnersville used to be a thing. The grass now is changing the way people are fishing jerk baits on Gunnersville. But that bait right there on Gunnersville used to be a real thing. And that's another bait that the walleye guys got onto.
Now, does this have a completely different action to it? Because we talk about the nose line tie, which is typically here. Now the tie is moved all the way down to the bill.
Yes.
It's got to have a different role in action.
Way different. It's more like a crankbait action to it. It has more of a, more like a crankbait action.
Swimming instead of a lazy roll.
Right. It's just, it's a completely different bait. But it got, man, that was really a good kept secret. And then the Rebel, the Rebel fastback, I think it was same style of bait. Jointed though. It was jointed. That was another, old school, old world, thing that we used to do way back in the day. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really cool stuff in this industry. A lot of things are starting to come around. There's some of the stuff's coming back to circle again. And then of course with new technologies out, like the advent of tungsten and now of course our electronics, but who could keep up with that? I mean, that's going a million miles an hour. It's just really interesting. It's hard to stay on top of things all the time, because things are changing so rapidly. You know what I mean? And so, when you're design, like to me, the FX colors is, it's taking what's available to the painters out there and applying them in such a fashion that it's changing how the baits look. So this is the new thing coming out in the paint world right now, and I'm very fortunate to have all the pearls, pre-made pearls, powdered pearls, pearls that change color, blah blah blah, at my fingertips. So the paint game, I can kind of stay right in the mix with the paint game. No pun intended.
I like it. Perfect 10 Rogues in the FX series or colors.
Yeah.
The Perfect 10 Rogue now available, lurenet.com. And we are probably, we're less than 2 weeks away from knowing our schedule at the Bassmaster Classic. If you're planning on being in Tulsa and attending that, I would highly recommend it. Tulsa always shows out. It's a great arena. It's a great venue. The expo's easy to get around. Frank and I will be there for multiple days. I've got my own thing to do a little bit. Frank has his own thing to do, but there will be times over the weekend and at the expo where we will be in the same place at the same time. You have teased this a little bit, Frank, leading up to it, but there will be some pretty substantial giveaways at the Pradco booth. Maybe some color sevens, maybe some signature series merchandise. And then if you guys just want to hang out with Frank and hear a story or two, get a picture taken, have your baby's forehead signed.
I don't know. That only happened at my first Bassmaster Classic, dude.
Yeah, depending on what body part it is, Frank will sign it.
That's right. Depending, I'll have my handy dandy Sharpay ready to go.
So just keep that in mind if you're anywhere in the area, or I mean, you were at the last classic. I've been to every classic since 2008, and it's cool to see how many people like say, hey, we're from upstate New York, we're from Washington, we're from Canada, we're from Mexico, like all over, and they make a weekend out of the classic. So if you guys have like, okay, not like lodging questions, but just like general questions or anything, if you're thinking about attending the classic or anything, just shoot me a DM. Just at Matt Pangrak on Instagram. That's what I check most regularly. And it's worth the time. I mean, there's nothing like it, especially if you stay, there's nothing like that final day when they roll the top 6 in, they've weighed everybody in and they bring in the Super 6 and the lights are down and it makes the hair on your arm stand up. It's pretty
wild.
Really cool time on the year. All right. Next week, Frank dives into Bumblebee. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, yeah.
We're not laughing at the lure. We've done a bunch of the Pond and Bank series stuff, which is those are fantastic lures. Yeah. But somehow when you mentioned something Rebel,
yeah, the Rebel Fast Track, it's not made anymore, so it's irrelevant.
I went like what I've been doing here is just scrolling through. I forgot how many different nature shapes that Rebel makes in those little teeny baits and the micro baits.
You know what? I got something here. Hold on a second.
What do you have?
I have one of the oldest catalogs in the world. Let me see something here. Because now my curiosity is peaked.
Oh, dude, I forgot how many. Like, dude, I am 7 pages deep on Rebel on lurenet.com. Did you know that they made a chrome teeny weeny crawfish? Like, what is that a trout bait?
Yes, it is.
Okay, that's the only thing that makes sense on that is a chrome finish teeny weeny.
I'm trying to. Here we go. I'm on it.
Okay. I mean,
I don't know if it's going to be Rebel. I don't know if it's going to be in this catalog.
Surely it is.
Well, this may not be old enough.
Oh,
it's going to break my heart. I actually have some of them in my basement. All painted and leaded up.
The chunky frog.
The chunky frog.
Well, look at it. That's what it is.
I know. It's nice, dude.
That's a very chunky frog.
Oh, I'm so disappointed. It's not in here.
For, Frank?
I was looking for an old Rebel jerkbait, but it's not in here. So it's 100%. It's 100% irrelevant at this stage of the game.
Oh, no, that's fine. Like, I did not know that Rebel did all this stuff. Did you know that they make a micro crawl with a single hook on it?
Yeah, I did. Wait till you see what they got coming out. I can't disclose that, but they got some other things coming out.
What is this for? Is this another trout one? A little panfish deal?
Yeah, a lot of the stream guys will fish that. The Rebel has a really big trout following, which is pretty amazing to me, because I do a lot of trout fishing, but I'm usually fly fishing for it, or I throw my square bills on them, believe it or not. My fly fishing buddies hate when I do that, but I do. And then Rebel's got a really great creek and bank and a really great trout lineup. So, I mean, hell, guys,
do this though. Can we still have you ever fished the Bumblebee lure? Be honest.
Never.
You need a box of those though, just to completely blow your partners or co-anglers' mind when you get into the boat. Say, hey, get under the seat there and pull out one of them bumblebees. Let's see. Don't say anything to anyone.
Right, exactly, dude. With that
cranking bluff banks with the bumblebee.
Well, they were catching. Speaking about trout, they were catching brown trout on the White River on the FX colors in the Suspending Rattling Rogue.
I remember that.
They were actually one of the guys in the company was actually out 2 weeks ago hammering on some good trout.
Look at this one.
the Rebel Hellgrammite.
Look at that bad boy. I would imagine there's got to be a lot of Rebel collectors out there just because of how cool some of their shapes are, where they just have, pristine new in the box, the cricket, the bee, the Hellgrammite, the craw, the frog.
Right. Well, that's kind of where Rebel went. I mean, back in the old days, we used to fish the deep we are and the deep tiny we are all the time for bass. And then those little creature style baits for, ponds, rivers, and streams started taking off like mad. And so Rebel kind of has this whole division right down that alley, which is pretty unique.
And you know why we are going to do a show on the Bumblebee? You thought I was just clowning on it. Because in 2024, billions of cicadas will emerge in the United States in a double brood event. The 13 and the 17-year cicadas for the first time since the early 1800s across a lot of the United States. The 17 and the 13 simultaneously emerged this year.
Yeah,
this spring.
Have you ever fished during a major cicada
100%. I remember it. I was like 13 years old. We had a canoe. That's all we had, and my dad would drive me around Clinton Lake and Shelbyville and Lake Decatur, and I would have a jar of cicadas and a gold Aberdeen hook, and we would just go up next to the trees. I would flick it, and it would be bass, crappie, flathead, channels, blues, white bass, carp, big time carp. Like you get a cicada around a carp, and it's a done deal. But anything that swims for about a month period
will just devour.
Gorged on cicadas. Now, I will say I was not a fan of the taste of some of the game fish, like a channel cat that's been eating cicadas for a month. Is a little
it wasn't
a little sour.
It wasn't almondy.
It was not almondy. It had that kind of I think we've all tried a bug at some point in our life. It had that kind of bug acidity to it. But anyway, we digress. I'm sure we will have cicada shows as it goes on. And but I predict a big year for Rebel because of this.
Okay.
I'm serious. They've got all the baits that look just like a cicada on the surface.
They do. 100% they do.
You got anything else?
No, man. I'm just excited. Finally, the P10s are out. Now I don't have to keep painting the ones I want to fish. I could actually get them.
All right, this has been another edition of Day 4 with the man, Frank Scalish. I'm looking at the schedule. Same place, same time next week, live.
All right.
Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
All right. We'll see everybody then. See ya.